This is T+1 Hot Topics, and I'm Virginie O'Shea, founder of Firebrand Research. This episode is going to focus on the technology tools and standards to focus on when preparing for the move to shorten the settlement cycle in Europe in October 2027. One of the mantras for preparation thus far for T+1 has been automation, automation, automation. I think Andrew Douglas has said that a million times at millions of different events that he's been speaking at. But where exactly are the biggest automation gaps? So I'm going to throw that first to you, MJ.
No problem. Thanks, Virginie. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, the word automation, I think, has probably been the most used words in 2025 and probably through 2026 and 2027, especially as it's pretty much the backbone, across the recommendations that have come out from UK Accelerated Taskforce, as well as the EU Industry Committee. And I think when you look at, if you break things down in a kind of a simplistic form, we need to do the same thing we do today in less time. And obviously, when time is of the essence and the only way to improve workflows and life cycles and so on, the only way to do that is to automate what we do today. I think Andrew Douglas has been quite prominent in some of the things he's said in regards to, even though in theory we've got 24 hours less, to do what we're doing because we're going from a T2 cycle to a T1, it's actually an 80% decrease in the amount of time you've got to do what you need to do when you take into account cut-off times and time zones and all that kind of thing as well. So I always try to think of things through a life cycle lens. So obviously execution will remain execution, and there's been, an unbelievable amount of spend and technology involvement in the way our front office execute business, from automated direct market access, algorithmic trading and so on. But that's never really transposed in the best way when we look at post-trade as well. So I always try to think of things from as soon as that transaction is executed, how quickly can it be captured and how accurately can it be captured, from both the buyer and the seller's perspective. Obviously, that leads us into the confirmation allocation process, which is kind of the first entry point of transactions to get into the post-trade lifecycle. As we know, not every client or every counterparty has embraced automated platforms. Some that my firm bring to market, but there's lots of choice across Europe and UK about how you could automate that process. But I think when we look at the problems of automation, we need to look at those firms that haven't yet fully embraced how they can capture transactions, allocate, match, agree, and then send them through the life cycle down for settlement and so on. I mean, if we look at the statistics that we've got today, I mean, my platform, DTCC processes around about 30 million transactions a year across Europe. On average, we've got like a 96.5% same-day match rate across European equities. So that's the best way to go, right? Capture everything you can do as quickly as possible. Agree with your counterparty, and why bring in that smaller long tail of clients that haven't yet automated yet is if you're a broker dealer and you're trading with the likes of Franklin Templeton, you've got no problem; they're fully automated. But if you then go for one of these smaller, I wouldn't use the word unsophisticated, but the smaller firms that are low on volume, they don't have a huge resource or budget for technology purposes. But if you're transacting with that client and you're waiting until 6 p.m. for a fax or an email or an Excel spreadsheet to come back to you to tell you how to allocate that trade, that's time that's been lost. Whereas when you automate that process, you get the benefit of real-time automation as well. And it does kind of break my heart a little bit that there's still firms out there that haven't fully embraced automation. There was always barriers that were thrown up, whether it was technology, cost, and so on. But I don't think that's a true argument in today's world. We've got the evolvement of different types of connectivity interfaces. There's automated platforms, there's fixed, there's Swift, there's XML, FTP, there's a whole magnitude of ways to transpose data and send data to each other. So one of the things we've looked at is to bring our services to market in a much lighter package that we've done. Won't get too commercial, but low cost, to bring these smaller buyer side firms into the automated world. So that way, when broker dealers are transacting with them, they can treat them in exactly the same way as a fully automated client that is using SSI's repositories, that is using electronic platforms and so on. And I think one of the main points and why we do focus so much on the confirmation allocation or the trade capture process is if you get that part correct, it makes everything then down below a lot easier. So if you can lock in not just the economic risk you've got to your transaction, but also agree on how you're going to settle it, where you're going to settle it, even to the point of sending each other the account SSI details at that point in time. It just makes that whole T1 journey a lot more seamless, and it should then create the relevant amount of downstream efficiencies that we're looking to achieve as we move to T1 in about a year and a half's time.
So catching problems as early as possible as well. That's part of the process with automation. Dana, do you want to add anything on that front?
Yeah, I'm not challenging the automation. The only thing that I would say is that, we need to make sure that you have the foundations to automate. I think what we see today as well is the disconnect because standards between firms are not interoperable. Everybody has their own models, legacy systems. So I think this is definitely a call out. And I'm wearing, of course, my standards hat that, if you are still using your legacy formats, it's time to look at, using harmonized data, following market practices, making sure that you have that unique identifier for your transactions, that you use common reference data, because otherwise you will have a high likelihood to automate inefficiencies that you have in your system, and you will not get to that 80% decrease in time that Matt was alluding to.
And last but not least, Leah, do you want to comment on automation as the agenda evolves?
Absolutely. So maybe I'll take it a step further. And perhaps we should also think of automation as part of the process attached to the pre-matching and pre-settlement side of things. So here we have now artificial intelligence. We can monitor real time where we stand with our counterparties on that transaction. Do we have everything aligned, everything ready to go for settlement? Are we able to monitor those reports coming from our counterparties through AI and spit out exceptions where you really do need to focus in scenarios where there's a lot of work that still needs to be done before the trade is matched and settled for that settlement date?
Sure. I was wondering how quickly AI would come up, and it comes up in the first question, indeed. Good stuff.
It's a good point now, because when a couple of years back, before AI was like a real thing, there was a lot of talk around predictive analytics and how we can understand historically what we've done. Can that tell us what we would need to do potentially on a real-time basis? But I think to Leah's point, we're probably at that point now, or we're going to be at that point really quickly. I haven't met a company yet that does not have some kind of AI strategy or AI partnership that's getting a decent amount of funding as well.
Very true. Yeah, technology evolves at a very fast pace at the moment.